Hi, I'm Kim Schmidt, Executive Editor of Farm Equipment. Welcome to Farm Equipment's Used Equipment Remarketing Roadmaps podcast. In this episode, Casey Seymour and Aaron Fintel of Moving Iron LLC discuss the used equipment marketplace and how different pockets of the U.S. are seeing some different trends right now. Let's jump in as Casey and Aaron start off the conversation discussing tractor populations in the Southeast.
I got my good friend Double A Ron on here with us talking about, all the stuff happening in the marketplace. And there's a fair amount of stuff happening, but we could talk about the same things we always talk about, which is what's happening in the auction market, what's going on with various significant lines of equipment and those kind of things, so on and so forth. But I think what we need to talk about more than anything, obviously, is
a lot of lines of delineation in the washout cycle.
We don't need to talk about any of that. But one of the things
that was beautiful.
That was nice. Well timed. I think one of the things that we need to talk about primarily here, more than anything, is what we see happening in the overall marketplace. And I think there are starting to see some pockets of area of the United States where all things aren't all the same, and not good, bad, or otherwise. We're just seeing some other things kind of pop up, move around. And if you want to take a look at what's happening, let's use the Southeast, for example. So Aaron and I both have plenty of people that we talk to every day on stuff that's going on. And if you look at what's happening in the Southeast, it seems like there is more tractor population, I would say, than you'd see other places in the world, right?
There's a lot more fleet action.
Right. Yeah. You got a lot more guys out there that do cotton, that require a hell of a lot more tractors to make that thing work than what you see anywhere else. That being said, they are starting to see, there's some concern with some of the people I've talked with a little bit that there may be too many tractors right now, and they don't know what they're going to do with that next generation trade. But you start going west and you get to like the Ohio River Valley, the Middle Tennessee River Valley. You start looking at the Mississippi Delta in that area, and you don't see that same issue.
No,
right? It's like the Georgia, Alabama's, Florida's, North, South Carolina, pretty much the SEC, the eastern side of the SEC, right? So if you start looking at it from that perspective, and you start moving forward, then you get to where we're at out here in the High Plains, and if we had the tractors on the lot that they had in the Southeast, we very likely would have people interested in buying those.
Well, it depends. A lot of times what you have in those fleet situations like that, specifically in peanuts, cotton, that kind of stuff, you have smaller Magnums, smaller 8Rs, very low spec. Now,
true, yeah, you don't have the big ones, yeah.
Right? Yeah. Typically, when they, when those dealers that have a lot of those fleet type situations, they don't have trouble getting rid of 370s, 400s,
Sure.
The over 300 crowd all leaves.
Right.
And they even have some of those that aren't they're not I-state spec, if you will.
Yeah.
So
sure.
But out here, just to prove your point, out here, that base spec thing would still sell.
Sure.
It's still going somewhere. It's not going to be what are we going to do with these?
Yeah, because that's what would be available.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a tractor.
And I think that's the key to that scenario that we have right now, is that we're seeing in the Southeast that it's a lot of the same thing.
Right. And it's kind of that, what we were talking about a podcast or two back, kind of the for lack of a better word, the turds are still the turds in the marketplace.
Word.
Not that those are that, but they're not part of the insanity group.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
They're not signature edition. This tractor new was 500 and it brought 750 because it's there today. So I think that has a big play on that. They both of those issues play off each other, and that's where you get, even in a super hot market, that's where you get a little bit of, we better take a look at these kind of deal.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think if you look at, but then you continue to go even further west than us, and you get into the mountain states. You start looking at the extreme West Coast,
The Intermountain West.
Yeah. You start looking at, you get down, into the high value crop areas of Arizona and Southern California and all that. They're even worse off than we are when it comes to inventory.
Yeah.
Because then you really start looking at niche machines, high clearance machines, and you start looking at, various different kinds of combine situations. I mean, there's a bunch of different stuff that comes into that. When you look at our area specifically, I don't think you bring a whole bunch of 250 to 285 horsepower tractors here, and then you have a bunch of people that, yep, I'll take one. Yep, I'll take one. With the exception of that is guys that are looking maybe to update a feedlot operation type style tractor.
Right.
That's where a lot of those tractors that leave and go to a farm operation, when they come back used with 500 or 600 or 700,000 hours on them, whatever it is, they typically end up in a more feedlot centric area.
And quite honestly, we've through the years have bought tons of those for the feedlots for the dairies, because we don't produce that spec of tractor ourselves. The owner operator, which is typically where that smaller, the under 300 goes,
right?
He wants all the stuff on it because he's driving it.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
When you get into even in the high plains, the Midwest, you get into the multi-units, the fleets. And even in that realm, if there are little ones, they're fancy.
Sure.
So the dairy, the feedlot doesn't want that tractor. But they do. They don't want to pay for it, and they don't want to babysit all this stuff that's gonna go wrong.
Right. Yeah.
When it's covered in manure.
Right.
So I mean, just to piggyback on what you were saying there, we have participated in that. Take that tractor there, move it here, and it's perfect.
Right.
And that's somewhere where those cotton peanut, kind of tractors, they end up in veggie country once in a while too.
Sure.
So the cool thing is once in the north, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, all that, you got potatoes there. But once you get to the high plains and west, you got more potatoes, more sugar beets,
so much more diversification.
Yeah. Right. And that's where, sugar beets, case in point. That's a high tractor number market because there's a lot of steps.
Yep.
Potatoes, insane.
Yep.
Lots of tractors.
And I think that's one thing where the equipment people, when they're looking at what's going on, the further west you go and you start getting west of the Mississippi River, and you start getting past like I-29, get past the Missouri River, and you start moving west past that, the soil conditions change, the amount of water that you get changes, all these things start to change that dramatically affect the growing of corn and soybeans, right? So,
you get case in point, you get too far west of 29 and there aren't any soybeans.
Right. Yeah.
There you get some in North Dakota, but you get, western Nebraska, western Dakotas. There's not. You run out of soybeans when you hit mountain time zone.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. But you start looking at the diversification in those areas.
Right.
We'll get back to Casey and Aaron in a minute, but first I wanted to invite you to join us virtually this December 8th and 9th for the Ag Equipment Intelligence Executive Briefing. To learn more and to register, visit agequipmentintelligence.com/executive briefing. Now back to Casey and Aaron.
No, I'm not saying there's not multiple crops getting grown in Georgia. I'm not saying that at all. I mean, you grow corn and cotton and peanuts and, whatever, sweet potato. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Right? All kinds of stuff that you're growing.
Tons of stuff.
What I'm saying is that's a common the common number of crops that a farmer grows in the areas that we live in is, I mean, you got guys that'll do alfalfa, they'll have some pivots of alfalfa. They'll have cattle. They'll have corn, edible beans, sugar beets. You'll see, I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. And there's all kinds of stuff. Chickpea, I mean, you name it, there's all kinds of things there. And each one of those crops, I mean, obviously they have a same, they got a planter, you got a tractor, you got a combine, you got whatever it is that you're using to harvest. But it just seems like the need for multi-level horsepower tractors is more abundant here west than you see some other places.
Yeah.
Because you have a place on the farm for a 600 power horse four-wheel drive.
Yeah.
You'll have a 300 horsepower row crop. You might have a 250 horsepower tractor using a row crop situation, or
that's also a loader tractor.
That's also a loader tractor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now you start looking at that. So that the diversification of equipment that you start seeing out here, just because of the needs that you see out here for guys to make a living farming, is different than what it is in other places.
Right.
You have so many different things that you have going.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think that need for the diversification of equipment, horsepower. I mean, just whatever it is. I mean, bigger isn't always better, so there's a lot of things where you might see, your tillage piece, that's your primary tillage piece, might be 35 foot wide, but you have some secondary tillage pieces that might be, 50 feet wide,
60,
depending on what it is, so there's some situations there. And again, not that there's not diversification east of here, because there is plenty of diversification, but that diversification tends to evolve around corn, soybeans, cattle, and hogs.
Right.
Cattles. That's
cattles.
That's
plural,
right?
Well, sometimes you have cattle.
It's the cattles.
It is. It's the cattles.
I'm going to go out and feed my cattles here. So anyway, but that's the four things that typically revolves around. And it's not, here it's cattle. And then about
you could even drill that down into just corn and soybeans, because the amount of cattle to the east is, yes, there's plenty there, and lots of I-state guys feed, but they're far lower numbers that way than the high plains west.
Right.
And that being the case, there's hogs all over.
Sure.
But that's where your corn and soybeans takes over. I mean, that's a feed right off of that. So if your corn and soybeans aren't going anywhere market wise, the piggies probably aren't eating when you get to that direct, correlation.
Sure. Yep. Yeah. And I think so you start looking at where things are at. So now, long story short is here, we're seeing a buildup of tractors in the Southeast. And we're starting to see that slowly tick across the United States, and even in Canada, we're starting to see some of that too. So when you're looking at,
but here's an argument being the used, get rid of this guy. Is there really a problem, or is there just a problem with the ridiculous pricing levels we're at right now?
Well, I mean, that's the same argument. That's a timeless argument. You know what I mean? The argument, I mean, the same guy was saying the same thing. I can't believe I'm paying $250,000 for a used tractor.
No, I don't mean it that way. I mean, like.
You mean like the narrowing of the customer base?
No. I'm talking about, we got too many tractors. Well, sharpen your pencil a little bit and you won't. That's what I'm getting at.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. Well, I mean, yeah, to some extent. I think one of the bigger issues that we see with equipment piling up, or whatever you want to call it, is simply that the front end of the washout cycle is just crammed full, 1 and 2 year old machines. That's what's coming in right now.
Right. There's
not that, and you got to go find the 3 to 5 year old stuff. You got to go find the 6 to 10 year old stuff. And you got to go find,
the 3 to 5. That's the sweet spot.
Right. And so
if you can
get to 3 to 5, to get to 3 to 5 year old stuff, you've got to have a good amount of stuff out there for the overarching stuff that you see on the washout side. I mean,
Right.
if it's all on one side, it's no different we've seen in the past. Difference here is we don't have the backflow of stuff coming in. So to answer your question, probably some of the issues that we're seeing with some of the stuff might be that, but I think a lot of it too has to do with the time of year. I think that has something to do with it. We've got guys that are looking at what's my year end look like.
Yeah.
So everyone's pretty well done with harvest right now. And I'm pretty well like, I got 7 days to go, or I've got,
right. They know where they're at.
Right. They pretty well know what they've got. So now they're going to start having those conversations about, hey, this is where I'm looking at, stuff put together. Go hit up the accountant. And then all of a sudden, we had the same conversation every year. Oh, man, this stuff's kind of slow moving, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, takes off and runs. Right. We have 60 days here? Well, no, I guess we don't have that much. We don't. 45 days, pretty much, because what's today? Today's the 20th. So today's 22nd. So you got
like 40.
Yeah,
40 days.
About 40 days. 40 days to go. So
which means 30 days.
Right.
Don't shit yourself.
So I mean, but a lot of that stuff too is what's driving some of the stuff more than anything is just what's available.
Right.
And a lot of stuff's just not available right now.
Yeah.
So I think if you're looking at that stuff, then you start looking at combines, you start looking at all these other stuff, forage harvesters, you start looking at those kind of things. I mean, the volume of combines right now is about a third of what it was a year ago, right? The number of combines on the marketplace. Still a lot of combines, but that goes back to that same thing I just said earlier. Yeah, there might be 4,000 or 5,000 combines on the market, but probably 2,500 of those are actually available.
Right. Exactly.
I mean? Yeah. And I think that's what we run into more than anything when we're talking about this, is that there might be a perception that there could be a lot of stuff in the place and their inventory, and that could very well be there, but what's actually available for sale, someone to take home today, it's not necessarily true. I mean, you look at our website.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it looks like we got a bunch of stuff, but I mean, not all that stuff's available.
So, go drive by the lot.
So I mean, that's just a whole nother thing that we're seeing, and I think that will continue through. What's happening there, and interest rates are going to play a big role in what we see happening, and that's going to play a bigger effect on a lot of things, especially
big time.
Start looking at start doing lines of credit renewals and those kind of things for 23.
It used to be when you're selling a combine, the first question was, what kind of shape's it in?
Right.
Now it's, what's the interest rate?
Right. Yeah. So, and I think that's going to continue to be an issue into 23. So I don't know. It's so hard to pinpoint what's the actual state of the union when you don't see, you don't have all the data. You see all the data, but you don't know what the impact of that is, because not all of it's in flux yet.
You can't truly tell what state the union is in.
That's no pun intended there. So I think that's the big picture of this whole thing, is that there is a wave. Wave's probably not the right word. There's going to be an influx of used inventory, I think, that first quarter of 23, and we're going to see that grow like you think you would normally see it grow through March, and then we'll start seeing some things happen based around what goes on into the overarching models of the quail marketplace. So,
gotcha.
All right, on, man. So, one thing we used to do a lot, but we haven't done for a while, is the Aaron Fennell deal of the week. Anything out there that you're pimping right now?
Lots of combines.
Okay.
Combines and choppers. I got a R45 sprayer.
An R45 sprayer?
R45 sprayer. As soon as I said that, I was like, wait, that's not enough numbers.
That's a new one.
Yeah, that'd be like a
4.5 foot boom.
Yeah.
45 stands for.
Yeah. It's autonomous. But it's a nice sprayer. It's on Twitter. You can catch it out there. Lots of combines on Twitter, choppers on there, couple planters here and there. So the Twitterverse has been fairly active yet again.
Right.
Had to blow on it like a Nintendo game back in the day to get it to work again.
Right.
It's like, I don't know how to do this.
What do I do with my hands? So where do they find that stuff on the Tweeterverse?
Well, you can reach me on Twitter at aaronfintel. Also on Facebook, you can reach me there. Call me, text me, 308-760-1193.
You find them on the LinkedIn as well.
Yes, the LinkedIn, correct.
Yep. I always say if you're going to be linked, you might as well be linked.
Whether you're in or out, you're linked.
That's right. Yep. You can always find a cool way to do this. Looks like we're having some technical difficulties here at the video, so we're just going to let it ride.
There you go.
You can find me. I'm Casey Seymour. You can find me at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Moving Iron LLC. You can go to LinkedIn at Moving Iron Podcast, and you can find the video version of this, which is questionable right now, at the Moving Iron Podcast YouTube channel, which is the Moving Iron Podcast YouTube channel. Is what's called. Super. I mean, I've been creative about a lot of things in my life. That was probably my best work.
Well, you knocked it out of the park with that one.
Yeah. So check that one out there. Go to Moving Iron LLC for everything Moving Iron related. And you can find all the information out there about anything you want to find that is Moving Iron related at movingironllc.com. So with that, I am Casey Seymour with my boy, Aaron Fintel. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Smooth Smart out.
Thanks, Casey and Aaron, for sharing your conversation with us. You can keep up on the latest industry news by registering online to receive our free newsletters. Visit www.farm-equipment.com. For Casey and Aaron, as well as our entire staff here at Farm Equipment, I'm Kim Schmidt. Thanks for listening.